I found this on Dalrock's blog, and the story comes out of the Business Insider, believe it or not. And I decided to file this under the MGTOW brand, but it's something that the millennials and younger men are going through all over the world, and it's a phenomenon of feminism and the advanced post-industrial world that we live in. But let's get into the story. The article comes from Business Insider. The gender pay gap is narrowing for millennials, but for the wrong reasons. Men in their 20s earning significantly less than the generation before them, and it's closing the gender pay gap. They are taking up jobs that used to be predominantly taken by women. Part-time, low-paid work, according to the think tank Resolution Foundation's Intergenerational Commission Unit. Millennial men, those aged between 22 and 30, are operating at a cumulative pay deficit, meaning that by the time they hit 30, they will be earning 12,500 pounds less on average compared to men at the age from the previous generation. Millennial men have earned less than Generation X men in every year between the ages of 22 and 30, resulting in a cumulative pay deficit during the early 20s of 12,500 pounds or $15,638. However, the unit found that millennial women's pay is stagnant compared to the last generation. This, in turn, means the gender pay gap is closing, but it's not good news. In fact, Resolution Foundation says millennial women have experienced neither generational pay progress or decline. This has narrowed the gender pay gap for millennials, but for the wrong reasons. The foundation's analysis highlights a shift towards lower skilled jobs, often done part-time, as a key reason for the stunted pay progress of young men. Both men and women have been affected by a reduction in some traditional mid-skilled occupations over the last 2 decades, with a 40% fall in young men aged 22 to 35 doing routine manufacturing jobs, 66% reduction in the number of young women working in secretarial roles. It added, the roles that women usually took up when finding a job were generally lower skilled and lower paid in the past. Now more men are moving into that sector. While employment growth amongst women has been overwhelmingly transferred into higher skilled jobs, it has seen men earn on a par with women in the last generation. Here are some key points from the report. Between 1993 and 2015-16, the proportion of low-paid work done by young men rose by 45%. Wow. There was a doubling of young men going into retail jobs from 85,000 to 165,000, while the number of millennial women doing these jobs has fallen at the same time. The number of millennial men working in bars and restaurants tripled to 130,000 from 45,000. The long-held belief that each generation should do better than the last is under threat, said Torsten Bell, executive director at the Resolution Foundation. Millennials today are the first to earn less than their predecessors. While that in part reflects their misfortune to come of age in the midst of a huge financial crisis, there are wider economic forces that have seen young men in particular slide back. Now, that is bad news for women that want to start families, because women are hypergamous, and hypergamous for a good reason. They want someone making more than they make so that their children can be supported, and they can be supported when they're pregnant or raising children. So a young man earning what they make or less in some cases is a turnoff and not marriage material, but women still want to have babies. So there's no wonder that you have a rise in single motherhood, especially amongst millennials, white millennials, that is. Because of the nature of the economy and whatnot, you're starting to see young men giving up and starting to live the MGTOW minimalist lifestyle. This lifestyle is similar to what we see in Japan with the grass eaters or the Japanese MGTOW men that don't take on girlfriends or wives or families as their fathers once did when they were company men. So while these men may not be carrying the MGTOW brand or flying the MGTOW flag, they're actually living the MGTOW lifestyle. And now people or governments all over the world are really starting to take notice. Like Dow Rock once said years and years ago, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, this is more than a marriage strike. This is a complete and total change in the way society is structured and how young men are basically forming their lives. With nothing to look forward to as far as pensions and happily married families, young men are basically living for themselves and, like the grass eaters in Japan, turning inward into their own personal hobbies and pursuits. Instead of tricking off their money to trying to please and marry women, they're turning inward and they're trying to live for themselves and be content, if not happy. So in a backwards way, the feminists are getting their wish. The pay gap is closing, but their options are also closing right along with the pay gap. Women like a lot of things, but getting off their asses and actually working for a living for 40 years or 50 years, and sometimes till they're dead and buried, is not what it's not the bargain that they actually sought or wanted. What's that old saying? Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Case in point, look at the story. It is what it is. Women, you reap what you sow. So like they say, read them and weep. With that, this is BGS out.